drop it like it's vaccines. Oh no. All right, power panel. You crazy dog? We're gonna have an excellent time here. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola, Senator Nina Turner, former Ohio State Senator, former campaign co-chair for Bernie Sanders. Of course, John is the host of Damage Reports, which you guys are all checking out at 1 o'clock Eastern. You're all doing that already. Okay, so we got a great show ahead for you guys. We've got Benjamin Netanyahu ordering MAGA around. Interesting, let's see how that turns out for him. We've got Trump's retribution, but also a health scare. Interesting. Democrats fight back, but do they? Okay, have that story for you a little bit later. And in case you're wondering, you know what? I wonder what shirt Cenk is wearing underneath the banner that I'm seeing there. Oh, well, okay, I'm glad you asked. It's this, oh yeah. America loves Palestine, okay? So what we're doing, guys, is shoptyt.com. All of the profits go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. And we've got a whole free Palestine collection, and all the proceeds from there go to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. So check it out at shoptyt.com. I love this shirt, I'm gonna wear it around. There's a bunch of others just like this too. Yeah. All right, anyways, wanted to let you guys know I had that ahead of time. All right, what do you got, John?
It's a great shirt, but you can't be MAGA if you wear that shirt. I'm finding out from Israel, but anyway.
Oh, I see. Okay, well, I'll have to take that under advisement. Actually, before we go on, how are you, Nina?
I'm doing great. Glad to be on the power panel tonight, Cenk, with you and John. Fabulous.
All right, wonderful to have you back. Okay, all right, John. Now proceed with the news.
Why don't we jump into it? In a recent interview with Breitbart, the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, stated that no American can be MAGA if they're anti-Israel from his point of view. But that's not stopping some of the loudest voices in the MAGA movement, including Steve Bannon, Marjorie Greene, Matt Gaetz, from continuing to hammer both the Israeli government and their military strategy. So we're gonna give you all the details, what Netanyahu said and how they're responding to it. But Cenk, what was your response to hearing that the prime minister of another country gets to decide who is in particular American ideological groups?
Yeah, I think he made a wonderful mistake. I'm actually thrilled about it because here's what MAGA doesn't love. In my experience, and I do have some experience with it, right? Having talked to a lot of them. Foreign governments telling them what to do. Not high on MAGA's list, right? And number two is people telling them, all right, this is what you're allowed to think. If you think anything else, we're gonna cancel you, okay? So Netanyahu has made a series of bungling errors that you would think like, no, come on, what do you mean? First of all, there is no consequence for any of the Israelis' errors, and that's exactly right. And that is why he has become far too arrogant. So that is why he's being messy with his propaganda. So normally people would tackle him before he said something this dumb, right? But he's so arrogant now. He's like, I will tell MAGA what to think, and you will follow my orders. Good luck, brother. Good luck. A lot have tried, not many have succeeded.
Well, why don't we get to how he came to this pronouncement? So as I said, he was speaking with Breitbart News, and they asked him this, saying, anti-Semitism has been rising around the world, and many of us had become used to seeing it on the extreme left.
Okay, whatever.
Okay, moving right along, I guess, but now it does seem to be rising on the right as well. For the first time in history, I think, but anyway. There are in the United States certain popular conservative commentators who appear to have drifted in that direction. Is it religiously based somehow? Where is it coming from in your view, and how do you stop it? And he said, some of these people call themselves MAGA. They're not MAGA. If you support Iran, Iran tried to kill President Trump twice, not once, but twice. Iran has put a price on his head, that's Iran. Iran has murdered, has killed and wounded more Americans, thousands of them in Iraq and in Afghanistan with their explosive devices. So just we're gonna cruise past the idea that those two guys who seemed to be conservative Republicans are Iranian assassins. But anyway, Israel is fighting Iran, and you can't be MAGA if you're pro-Iran. You can't be MAGA if you're anti-Israel. President Trump understands this, and he stands very strongly with us. And that is my favorite part of this, where he's not just saying, I will tell you if you're MAGA, he then says, yeah, and Trump's got my back. Don't you, Trump? Say I'm great, say I'm the best, say that I call the shots. And we'll see, maybe Trump will in the end. Maybe he'll go on Truth Social and be like, yeah, if you're anti-Israel, you can't be MAGA or whatever. And of course, again, another thing we have to just blow past is the idea that if you pose the current military strategy of Israel or the currently constituted government of Israel, then you're anti-Israel. You're against the country and its people if you just disagree with its government. That's like core classic propaganda, so I'm not surprised to see it here. But Steve Bannon did not take kindly to these remarks. He wrote on Gaetz, American citizens do not give two F's about your thoughts on MAGA or what our citizens need to believe. They care about exposing your pathological lies in order to keep us out of your next war. And I have no idea why every word is capitalized in that, but I do like that he's standing up for his movement. And we can get into what AIPAC is saying, some of the other representatives, but Steve Bannon at least is implying, I guess, that MAGA is gonna stick with him, not with Netanyahu and maybe Trump. Where do you see this shaking out?
Yeah, it's a lot to comment here. So first off, starting with Netanyahu's comments. Number one, he said, Iran is killing Americans. Israel has killed 9 Americans since 2022. So in just the last 3 years, the accountability for that so far is 0. Because Netanyahu does in this case rightfully think I own the US government. Whether it's Biden or Donald Trump, I can kill American citizens all I want and you're not gonna do a goddamn thing about it. Actually, you're gonna send me bigger checks because you don't have a choice. So now he's taking that, what he does with politicians and applying it to the voters. And that's where the mistake is. You could do that with the politicians super easily because AIPAC and other Israeli lobby has donated to literally 90% of our Congress, 90%. So he owns them lock, stock, and barrel. If you're a moronic mainstream media reporter who says, oh no, I bet the millions of dollars don't affect the politicians, I can't help you because you're not on this planet, okay? So on top of that, they might or might not have blackmail from sources that we've gone over before, right? So he's got him completely locked down. And so he feels like he can boss anyone around. But when it comes to the voters, you don't get to just yell at them and call them anti-Semitic and have to do the stupid tricks you do with mainstream media reporters and get them to all heal because they don't have a dog in the fight. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm gonna get you fired from your job. Brother, you don't even know me, man. You can't get me fired, you can't get me arrested or deported. I mean, if you knew about me, you probably could, right? But you don't. I just have a private opinion, whether I'm on the left or the right. And so in the case of MAGA, it's literally called Make America Great Again. And they have a movement called America First. And now Netanyahu's saying, oh yeah? You just backhanded slap across MAGA's face, go, no, Israel first, America later. And yeah, but brother, again, you're not giving them money and you have no blackmail over them. So why the hell would they listen to you in your infinite arrogance? Okay, second thing he said that it jumped out at me. Iran tried to assassinate Trump twice. Nonsense, nonsense. 1000% propaganda, never presented a single piece of evidence over it. They just say it, him and Mark Levin and like just giant liars who are like, oh yeah, Iran is constantly trying to assassinate Trump, but they're trying to kill him right now. You better attack Iran, otherwise Trump's gonna die. No, look, dude, you're the one who gave him the pager, the golden pager. If Trump is under threat from anyone, it ain't Iran. Okay, and curiously, you went to go talk to him, and before he was checking you on a number of things, and then right after you talked to him last time you came, all of a sudden Trump's back to being a little puppy dog. So that's why he's like, oh yeah, I will order Trump to order you guys to put Israel first. Brother, I mean, that used to work, and maybe that worked in his first term, and that still certainly works for some of them. But I talked to them a decent amount, and they do not seem to be in a mood to get ordered, even if it's from Trump on this particular issue. And then the point that John made is hilarious, right? Anti-Semitism rising on the right. No, brother, the anti-Semitism that existed, and there is real anti-Semitism, was almost always on the right, right? So those are the guys who are like the neo-Nazis, the Jews will not replace us, etc. It doesn't mean that they represent all the right. Don't catch feelings, okay? I'm just talking about fringes. Like when you talk about the extreme fringes, obviously the extreme fringe of the right is the one that is proudly, white supremacist, etc., etc. It might be a smaller group, but it's a group, right? And it's not on the left, it's on the right. So what's the left believe? They believe in like weirdo, terrible things like equality. So they say, the Palestinians are equal to the Israelis. Oh my God, you want to piss off Netanyahu? That's the number one thing you say. How dare you? I get to murder 60 of them for one Israeli, okay? How you can't ever say that the Palestinian lives are equal to Israeli lives. And you better all listen to me. Okay, brother, okay. Yeah, you can say all this crap and you can go on those kiss-ass shows and have them go, oh yeah, where would you like to go? Burger King or McDonald's? Oh, we love you. Please take all of our money. I mean, don't take my money. Take the average American taxpayer's money, please. Well, you haven't murdered enough Palestinians. You can do all this stuff, but it ain't gonna work. And no, guys, but the one thing that is true is, and you see how they're equating Israel with critique of Israel with anti-Semitism. Even if a Jewish person does it, they're like, yeah, it doesn't matter. This is just a talking point, and we'll just get idiots to repeat it for us anyway, all over mainstream media. And now some of the loser right-wingers who we now control like puppy dogs ask me stupid questions, easy questions, don't do follow-ups. And they're like, oh, yes, sir, right? So yeah, you can do that with everybody, but with those guys. But the rest of online media exists.
Yeah.
The rest of humanity exists, and you've lost control of the message. So no, man, and a perfect example is, I mean, a lot of them: Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tom Massey, Matt Gaetz. We're going to get to all of those, but Bannon saying, and this is why it's important, guys. I was never predisposed to, oh my God, I think Israel is the greatest country in the world. I think they should have more rights than other people. I think the occupation is lovely, and even though it's a dictatorial occupation, I'll call it a democracy. I was never in that camp, right? But a lot of the right-wing thought leaders were. Bannon was super soft on Israel before. So now all of a sudden Bannon's like, who are you telling what to, right? And you're not surprised because his whole thing is America first, right? But at the same time, he never said that to Israel before. The reason he's saying it and so many of the others are saying it are because it's bubbling up on the right. The right is now getting super sick of being told what they must do and how they must give all their money to Israel and they must not complain about it. And if they do, that there's going to be consequences. So they're not in the mood for that. By the way, for us, we've always believed, okay? America loves Palestine. If you support the Palestinian cause, we are with you. And because the Palestinian cause is about equality and justice, and they deserve independence and democracy like everyone else. So this is at shoptyt.com, and all the profits go to Palestine Children's Relief Fund. We're very proud to do that with our Free Palestine collection. All right, Nina.
Yeah, I mean, amen to both what you and John had to say about this, Jink. I'm really glad to see it. I'm glad to see Gaetz and both Congresspeople Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Steve Bannon and others really stand up. And Steve Bannon summed it up. I mean, he speaks for me on this issue. That what we just showed for our audience, absolutely 100%. And I can tell you from firsthand experience, and I know you and John both know this, and many of our regular viewers on TYT, what I had to go through. And it was really literally that kind of stuff. I was literally told as a candidate in 21, and the special election in 21 in Ohio 11th, and also in 22, that Palestinians had no rights that the Israeli government must respect. And as a candidate, there was no difference between me and the next top competitor in the race on domestic issues. It was only my position that both peoples, Israelis and Palestinians, have a right to self-determination. Both peoples have a right to live safely and securely. And that was a bridge too far, and that was way before October the 7th. So to see these folks really stand up, and then Rep. Massey, who has done a video, I encourage our audience, if they've never seen the video, I forget where he was interviewing, but he said that AIPAC assigns a person to every member of Congress to watch over them, to lord over them, basically. And he said, I don't know what happens on the Democratic side, he said, but this is what happens on the Republican side. And trust and believe, it happens on all sides of that Congress. So I love to see it. Good for all of them.
Yeah.
So guys, in a minute, I want to give you some of the details of Senator Nina Turner's race in Cleveland because it really is instructive. And they did something similar to many people, including Andy Levin in Michigan as well. And for the same reason, they're for a two-state solution. And Israel says, no, we demand only one state and Palestine should never exist. And anyone who says Palestine should exist will be eliminated from American politics. So I want to come back to those details after we show you the interesting new bipartisanship on this.
Yes, let's jump into some of these comments, including first, the official Twitter AIPAC account had responded to one of Marjorie Greene's tweets referencing the ongoing genocide in Gaza. And they called her the dirtiest thing they could think of, full squad. And that's supposed to really sting, calling her like a woman of color? Like, is that, I mean, I guess traditionally that might be considered on the right, sort of the worst thing you could be, but it's strange here that she's the same thing now as AOC because she can acknowledge a genocide. They say same message, same legislation, same anti-Israel vision. The horrible war is only happening because Hamas refuses to free the hostages and surrender power. That's the only reason thousands and thousands and thousands of kids are being killed constantly. They're being starved every day. It's all because of Hamas. Hamas, I guess, is blocking the trucks from coming in. Yet MTG and her friends in the squad won't take any pressure or action to pressure Hamas to end it. Why? And she responded, instead of lying about me, have all you foreign agents at AIPAC registered under FARA yet? Not only are you a bunch of liars, you are breaking the law, which is not a bad point. And although obviously I think traditionally it's very clear that I disagree with Marjorie Greene on I think every other issue, I'm gonna give her special credit even over the other Republicans in this section because like Steve Bannon saying, don't drag us into your next war or whatever, is, that's good, that's not supportive of these wars, but Greene is one of the few Republicans that's actually spoken about the people of Gaza like as humans who are suffering, and that suffering itself is a reason to oppose this. We're not just non-interventionists. We're not just like, whatever the hell happens to you, I just don't want to be involved. That's easy, I think. But Greene has actually like talked about the suffering. And I like that. I'd like to normalize that a little bit on the right. Thomas Massey said, regardless of how many politicians you contribute to, speaking to AIPAC, Israel is losing the public relations campaign for its war in Gaza due to its indiscriminate bombing and tens of thousands of civilian casualties, which is just an objective fact. And Matt Gaetz says, AIPAC thinks it's an attack on MTG to accuse her of sharing the squad's unwillingness to be slavishly loyal to Israel. But what this attack reveals is that AIPAC has so badly overplayed their hand that they now have real problems on the political left and right. The Post literally advertises their greatest weakness, growing bipartisan opposition. MTG isn't some outlier here. Support for Israel is at a historic doldrum precisely because AIPAC has driven division, war, and chaos. They should register as the foreign agents they are. I proudly stand with MTG and my fellow Americans.
Okay, so a lot of interesting developments. So then I write in response to Matt Gaetz's tweet that John just read you, AIPAC's accidentally bringing grassroots left and right together and exposing how almost any lobby can buy our politicians. So ironically, AIPAC has done us a favor by showing how over the top corrupt our politicians are, that it exposes the entire systemic problem, right? And then Gaetz writes back, Cenk is correct about this, okay? So all of a sudden, AIPAC has accidentally brought the right and the left together. I mean, you want to talk about that point? We had Marjorie Taylor Greene on the show, which was unique and interesting and different, and we had her on because of this topic, and it looked like she was going to head in this direction. And in fact, she had blocked a bill saying that you are not allowed to boycott Israel, and if you do, there'll be severe consequences in America. And I was impressed that she actually took action and blocked that bill. So we talked about the issue here, and she was very good on it, and she's gotten better and better on it as we went along. And she asked at the end of that interview for a favor, which is, can you get John Iadarola to say something nice about me? Well, you earned it, Marjorie. There you go, okay? John was hard to get, but he did say it. And because really her tweets on this and her actions on this have been terrific. And so we can disagree with her on everything else, but there's no reason to turn down allies who are coming 100% in your direction. So much so that they've got Netanyahu panicked and AIPAC panicked. So that is a good day in America. Now I want to go back to Nina. So she was running in Cleveland. And Nina, correct me anywhere where I've got a little bit wrong. So she had this gigantic lead, a 35-point lead or so, and she was running against 11 Lilliputians. And then, and I say that because I literally saw the polling numbers: 2%, 1%, 4%, etc. And one of them decides to put something on our website that says how much she loves, supports, and will never disagree with Israel. And then all of a sudden, a giant amount of money shows up in that race against Nina Turner. In the first race, Nina, I thought it was about $4 million. So a lot of different Israeli lobby groups. The biggest one in that race, to my recollection, was Democratic Majority for Israel, which I thought was hilarious because I thought you guys were running for a seat in Cleveland. But apparently it was for a seat in Israel, because literally the name of the group is Democratic Majority for Israel. And so that goes to Marjorie Taylor Greene's point. Brother, you're for Israel, it's in your title. AIPAC has Israel in its title. So don't tell me that you're not doing this on behalf of a foreign government. And it's not like you're doing it for Norway or Peru. You're doing it for Israel. So this is clear cut. So tell us about your experience, what I got right and wrong there, Nina, in your race.
Yeah, you got the gist of it right, Jink. It was a 30-point lead in May of 2021. 11 people in the race, and they walked me down. They took the person that's in the seat right now as their person. She put a red box up on her website so that her campaign could send messages to a super PAC, because you're not supposed to coordinate directly. And by the time that special election happened, she had walked me all the way down, millions of dollars between, and you're right, it was the Democratic Majority for Israel that did the majority of the spending. A lot of donors here in the greater Cleveland area on the Republican side donated to her campaign as well. And in that primary, 4,000 Republicans crossed over in the special election during that primary. And that's just about how many votes she won in that special election of 2021. The blueprint for how to defeat progressives like myself, and again, our viewers have to understand this was way before October 7th. All I was doing was standing up for humanity, which I do, and also standing up for my district. I can tell you, I met with folks who told me to my face that there were very few differences between the two of us on domestic issues. The difference was about Israel. And when I said I'm running for the 11th congressional district, they told me that they did not care, absolutely did not care, that they give enough money to the Black community in support of the Black community, even though the district is definitely mixed, but the Black community. And so therefore it was really about support for Israel, which I did not, the right-wing government of Israel is different from the people of Israel itself. And in this country, we have a right to redress our government. We have a right to argue back and forth with our government. But for a foreign agent to basically blow down the way they're blowing down right now, the way they blew down in my race, the way they blew down in Congresswoman Bush's race and Congressman Bowman's race, I need our viewers to understand, and anybody else, that blueprint was crafted in Ohio 11th in 2021, and then again during the regular election cycle of 2022. But can you imagine somebody saying to you, and especially to a Black woman, that there's virtually no difference between you and the other person, even though there was 11 people in the race, it really only came down to 2 of us, and that we only care about what you have to say about Israel, which I only said peace and justice, security for both peoples. That's all I've ever said, and that was a bridge too far in 21 and also in 22, and they walked me down. I had supporters. Jink and John, I definitely got to shout out Jewish Voices for Peace, both nationally and in the city of Cleveland, who came to my rescue time and time again, and other of my Jewish sisters and brothers and family and friends who actually supported me and understood what was going on. There's a daylight between 21 and 22, where the kind of synergy and energy that we have right now, as you both know, it was not there for me. But I am really glad that it is here now, and I am absolutely glad to see some of our sisters and brothers and family and friends on the right. We got to be mature enough to agree on what we can agree on. Really stepping forward. If you're really America first, then you won't allow no foreign entity, no foreign government, no matter who they are, to come and boss around the American people in the way that AIPAC and Democratic Majority for Israel and others have been allowed to do. And Jake, I will say, when I ran that second time, as you know, people were hurt. They were hurt. They were jilted. They wore them down. And so it was a harder fight in 22 than it was in 21 because of how that money poured in and how Republicans jumped over to support the person that is in that seat right now. And yes, to date, she has received over $4 million from the AIPAC lobby.
Yeah, so look, guys, I mean, last couple things here. First, as we say a million times on the show, it's got nothing to do with religion. It has everything to do with a foreign government.
No,
not only are there hundreds, maybe thousands of Jewish American heroes fighting for peace and justice in Palestine that we could literally name right now between the three of us. But Marie Newman was attacked in the same exact way. And she was a congresswoman from Illinois. Her husband's Jewish. They don't give a damn, right? But more, clearly, Andy Levin from pretty much a legendary Jewish political family in Michigan was a House member. All he said was, of course, he's for Israel and for Israel's safety, security, et cetera. All he said was, we should do a two-state solution. That's actually official US policy. They targeted him, spent millions of dollars, defeated him. They are very clear. If you are not 100% in favor of whatever government Israel has, you're to be eliminated from American politics. And that is ironically bringing the right and the left together. Like, we should do an honest caucus. I mean, there won't be very many people in it. Because look, the things that we disagree with Marjorie Taylor Greene on, she's also honest about. But in a kind of shocking way. Meaning immigration, her views we are not at all in favor of, but it's not like she's pulling punches, right? She's not pulling punches in that regard. And so when she doesn't pull punches and we disagree with her, we go to war over that. But when she's doing it in this case for justice and what's right, great. And what brings us together is not our agreement across the board, but it's our agreement that we should be representing the voters and not any donor from any country or any corporation. So in that sense, it's a very rare.
I also want to add too, I want people to remember, when Senator Sanders was running as well, light years ago it seems, but he was called a self-hating Jew often. Often. And I remember one time we were coming through Cleveland Hopkins Airport, this lady stopped the senator and put her finger, tried to put her finger in his face. I don't know, racial, ethnic identity. I'm assuming it was a Jewish person, I wanna make that clear. And she was complaining about Linda Sarsour and calling her an anti-Semite. And the senator stopped her in her tracks and said, absolutely not. But this is what she just jumped right in front of him. So that's the kind of person that we're dealing with too in Senator Bernie Sanders. And also we know a lot of them, Adair Benjamin and Cole Pink and so many others of people just from different walks of life and identities coming together to stand up for humanity. And Jink, you were on that trip with me most of the time. I mean, what pains me the most is that you talk about being a humanitarian. I mean, that's how I roll. And say you disagree with some of the policies I believe in, but to send emails out all across the country, raising money, calling me an anti-Semite, but then what they did in district though, they didn't use that. Now they used that to raise money nationally, but what they did within the district is to say I was not sufficiently loyal to the Democratic Party, and that was gonna be a problem for President Biden, and some choice words that I said after 2020 primary about the difference between President Trump and President Biden before it became President Biden. So I just need people to understand that if the shoe were on the other foot and it was Americans being slaughtered like this, you would want a group of people to come together despite the other things that they disagree on and say that enough is enough, that this is not right. And so again, I am thrilled, and Jink, you're laying it out. Here we probably don't agree with much with that band of people on the right, but this is not about what we disagree on. This is about the things that we do agree on, and this is about humanity itself, whether it's in the Gaza, whether it is in the Congo, the Sudan, other places that are disrupted in this world because of geopolitics. We should be courageous enough to lock arm in arm on those issues and say that this is not right.
100%. I just last couple of things to back up what Senator Turner is saying. Another Israel supporting group in the 2000s put together a list of 8,000 so-called self-hating Jews, and they targeted them to get them fired and their lives ruined for criticizing Israel. And just this week, Jamie Raskin joined an effort to stop offensive weapons to Israel, and they immediately sent out a newsletter attacking Jamie Raskin, who's also Jewish. So it has nothing to do with whether you're on the right, the left, Jewish, Muslim, or Christian. They have only one priority: America must obey Israel. Well, now America, united right, left, and every religion, has the same message back to AIPAC and Netanyahu, and it's this. So this is what you accidentally created. So an ironic thank you.
Why don't we take our first break?
All right, back during the break. Don't forget to check out our podcasting network, where we get your podcasts. Damage Report's on there, Young Turks on there, all of our shows are. Don't forget to ring the bell. If you're watching the show now, it doesn't cost you anything. You just get a couple of video updates, especially when we go live. And I do often go live on the weekends, so ring the bell now if you can to keep up with that. We're also on Substack now, which is great. Check that out. Giving you updates on the rebellion, and obviously we've got the shows on there as well. I told you about shoptyt.com, and like I said, the Free Palestine, we've got that too. But the Free Palestine collection is all the profits go to Palestine Children's Relief Fund, which is a great organization trying to help those kids. If you didn't get a chance to check out my interview with a Palestinian doctor, he's actually a British doctor of Palestinian origin. That was in Gaza. I did that last night. Please check it out on YouTube or wherever you get our content, because it's a powerful story. I mean, when he started talking about how moms are bringing their kids in plastic bags and different body parts, it's just terrifying. It's just horrifying what Israel has done and made us pay for. So all those bombs are paid for by us. And it keeps me up at night. All right, now let's go to good news. Big news, indisputable with Dr. Rashad Richey, 1 billion views on YouTube. Da, 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 da. All right, so very few channels on YouTube get 1 billion views, lifetime views. And that's what Dr. Rashad Richey has done in record time. Unbelievable how quickly he got to 1 billion views. So if you're not checking out Indisputable, make sure you do. Obviously, it's at 1:30 p.m. And so it's after Damage Report. So make sure that you're checking that out. And it's got its own YouTube channel and it's on our website. Let's go to our members. Don't shoot on the goalkeeper on tyt.com says Nina F yeah. Okay, Tap Dancing Dragon says, hey Jen, can I get a 70th birthday shout out? So Tap Dancing Dragon, happy birthday. Love this community. Art Guy says, everything's gonna be okay, folks. John's here, he's got this. Okay, I like it.
What have I done?
Okay, a lot. I believe it. Tatiana in Japan says, woot woot. I love this power panel. Well, right back at you, Tatiana. Texan says, oops, Netanyahu, you do know MAGA is where all the actual anti-Semites are, right? Certainly the radical right. Helen 007 says, John, Nina, Jenk, just what I needed after a hard week. Thank you, Helen. Mitrian says, what an awesome power panel. Love to you all. Funkin' for Fun says, MAGA's gonna do what MAGA's gonna do. Glad TYT's letting the right know that there are many on the left they agree with on certain subjects. And that is what we're doing. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Cenk, Nina, and John with you guys, but also George Morrison, Bortle One. Thank you for hitting the join button underneath the video on YouTube. We really appreciate it. You guys make this show possible. Without you guys, we don't have it. We don't have fancy funding from from foreign nations or any of that. We just got you guys. Speaking of which, Marco Antonio gifted a membership on YouTube. But get a load of this. Drew Wilson gifted 50. So much love, Drew. Really, really appreciate it. I'm just going to give one comment here from TYT.com member, Susie Greenberg. She wrote in, the Jewish religion teaches about equality, love, and taking care of the world. Israel is doing the opposite of what I always learned. Susie, thank you for keeping the flame of true Judaism alive, and that's the Jewish culture that I grew up around when I grew up in New Jersey. My town's about half Jewish, and I loved it. That's why I love Jewish culture. And what Israel's doing now doesn't resemble it at all. You're right. Yuval Harari is right. And a lot of good, smart folks are saying the same thing. And decent, moral folks are saying the same thing. All right, John, what's next?
Okay, let's turn to a very worrying topic. Susan Menarez was confirmed as the new director of the CDC in July, but after just 1 month on the job, she has already been fired. And I'm sure you're dying to know why. Well, it's because she, a scientist with years of experience in infectious disease, disagreed with RFK Jr., a moron with years of experience serving as worm food, on the topic of vaccines. And look, the drama of how exactly it came to her being fired is complex, but in short, effectively, RFK Jr. Said during his confirmation hearings that despite a lifetime of evidence to the contrary, on the topic of vaccines, he actually has an open mind, and he's not gonna come in already having decided anything about what should happen with vaccines. That was a lie. So he got into the office, he banned a red dye or something so that the Instagram wellness people would get off his back. And then he turned to his true passion, which is getting rid of everyone inside of the CDC or Health and Human Services that knows anything about vaccines or is even capable or interested in reading the academic literature. And so Menarez, as the head of the CDC, was pursued by Kennedy to sign on to utterly changing the government recommendations having to do with the coronavirus vaccine, not based on any new science or anything like that. And in fact, when other top CDC officials asked what exactly they're basing these recommendations on, they were told, we're not gonna present anything to you. It's based on literally nothing except for their ideology. Well, she's an actual scientist, and so she said no. Now, they tried to pressure her to resign. She turned to Senator Bill Cassidy, who was like the deciding vote on RFK Jr. It had seemed like he could have gone either way. And they didn't like that, RFK Jr. didn't like that. And so they put more pressure until finally they fired her. And her lawyers have put out a response to that saying, when CDC Director Menarez refused to rubber stamp unscientific, reckless directives and fire dedicated health experts, she chose protecting the public over serving a political agenda. For that reason, she has been targeted. And that was the reason. It's why she is now gone, and she is not the only one. Dozens of top officials have either resigned or been fired. Entire advisory boards of experts on vaccines have been wiped out by RFK Jr. and ideological lackeys have been put into their place. And this is the reshaping of the CDC and HHS that everyone who had paid even like a little bit of attention to RFK Jr. knew was coming, and it's coming very quickly. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so look, I've been extraordinarily open to RFK Jr. And here's what I mean by that. I don't mean today, I don't mean the job that he's done in Health and Human Services. I mean, when he started running within the Democratic Party and then as an independent, first of all, we had him on the show and we gave him a fair hearing. Challenged him on the things I don't agree with, found out some interesting things that we do agree with on lowering housing prices, on corruption, etc. right? And then when he came into office, as the cabinet secretary, I was still open, and I said, "Look, this is your golden opportunity now. You've been saying that you're going to prove that vaccines don't work your whole life, right? Or whatever it is that you think you're saying, because he keeps saying no, he's pro-vaccine, and then does the exact opposite." So I guess he said that to get confirmation, get past the confirmation hearings, etc. But it doesn't matter because you're in charge now. So you can actually prove, and that's what I said in the beginning, go ahead and prove to us through science that you're right and all of the other doctors and scientists are wrong. So, I mean, you've got this amazing opportunity you never get any time else. And so now we check back in. Has he done that? Nope. Hasn't done that at all. Hasn't presented a single piece of evidence. Hasn't looked at a single legitimate study or ordered a legitimate study, etc. He's got a couple of kooks that he's referring to, but even they haven't presented any evidence. And so now when you say to me, Susan Monares, who was, by the way, appointed by Donald Trump and confirmed easily by the Senate and is, by all accounts, a great expert on this issue, you just fire her summarily without even asking her. I mean, she's at one of the most important roles underneath you, period. Maybe the second most important person. And so normally if that person was reporting to me and she just got in, the confirmation took a while, etc., right? I would say, okay, so then if we're having a real conversation, well, what do you think about vaccines? What's the the side you want to defend? And I'd get a whole bunch of people in the building and I'd have a conversation about it. I'd have presentations, I'd have both sides present. Instead, he's like, okay, you're fired. What? Hold on, you don't even know my views yet. And oh yeah, you're pro-vaccine, get the hell out of here. And my kooky guys over there, yeah, I believe them. But brother, you didn't show any evidence yet. So no, it turns out you're totally full of crap. And so maybe he turns around, but that is very unlikely at this point. And so he's revealing who he really is. And so for all the people who called him a clown and a bozo, here we are. I mean, you're the secretary and you haven't presented a single piece of evidence and all you're doing is firing the top experts. And by the way, one last thing about it for now, it's not like he showed any wrongdoing. It's like if he said, okay, look, yeah, I didn't ask her for what she thinks, etc. But here is something she did that was against science or against health or whatever. No, nothing. No, you're pro-vaccine. So's everyone else. So it's like 99% of scientists and doctors. You're fired. Okay, then you're an idiot. So the jury's come in. Good luck on appeal, but the jury has definitively come in now on RFK Jr. And if you said, hey, my jury had come in earlier, okay, fair, no problem. All I'm saying is, I've got an open mind, and and that applies to everyone on the left, the right, etc. If you can present evidence. I am very wary of big pharma and giant corporations and them telling us and through both themselves and our politicians what's good for us. When the drug company says we have to pay whatever price they demand and we can't negotiate prices, and you tell me big pharma is doing something wrong, I'm all open. I couldn't be more open to that argument, right? But then on politics, we presented. Big pharma purchased all these politicians, and the result you see here is that we can't negotiate drug prices. Here's a couple of $100 million they put into buying our politicians. Here's a couple of $1 trillion they're getting in return, right? Extended monopolies, etc., etc. That's evidence. This is not evidence. Me don't like you, you're fired. Okay, what the hell is that? So it turns out he was a clown from day one. All right, Nina.
Yeah, I mean, he's following in the footsteps of President Donald J. Trump, obviously with this action. And Jay, I think it's wise for us to have an open mind, give people an opportunity, and certainly RFK Jr. as well as everybody else that had the courage to run in that race deserve to have, for all of us to have an open mind. This is most disappointing. It is destructive and it could end up being dangerous. You want experts on diseases in these positions and you want to get understanding. This is not, he's treating this like it's his own individual crusade and I get when you're a private citizen, he was on a crusade. But now that he is in a cabinet position, his position should be to get the science, to get the facts, and to question. There's nothing wrong with questioning. Jake, you make an excellent point about the pharmaceutical companies and how they're just peddling drugs. In some cases, RFK Jr. may be correct about some of this stuff, but then you don't go and, as you put, just summarily fire the expert on these issues just because you want to have a temper tantrum. And his temper tantrum is and could put millions of people in harm's way, in jeopardy. And even if it doesn't happen today, 5 days from now, 10 days from now, at some point, these kind of decisions are gonna catch up with us all and it has ramifications beyond our shores. You don't play with disease in this way. So just very disappointing to RFK Jr. I had an open mind about him too, Jink. You know, I really, really did. And I thought it was wrong for the Democrats to ignore him. I thought it was wrong for them not to reach out to him after the primary. They should have went to get RFK Jr., all the things. But that, we're gonna separate that from how he is comporting himself in this position right now. Most disappointing, and it goes beyond individual disappointment. This is about the impact that that role has on all of us, both in the United States of America and the world, because diseases know no borders and no boundaries.
Yeah, I don't think anyone is ready for how bad it's gonna be if there's another pandemic. Like, random chance, act of God. I mean, it was terrible the first time, when there was an actual health infrastructure and like Fauci was there or whatever, and we had the resources, they hadn't been defunded, there were actual scientists. And the Republican base wasn't like concrete hard against anything being done to stop the spread of illness. But now all that's done. The CDC is gonna be utterly irrelevant. It's gonna be filled with quacks and kooks, that's it. HHS is gonna be ideologically opposed to doing anything. Donald Trump has already been booed for like promoting vaccines and stuff like that. He's not gonna make that mistake again. Fox News is utterly, again, concrete hard against taking any of this seriously. And so if we get a pandemic, man, buckle up. Nobody has any idea how bad it can get with these chuckleheads in charge.
Yeah, so you said act of God. You know, it could break out because of an act of God or an act of the Wuhan virology lab or whatever it might be. Look, I will do a challenge back to RFK Jr. So he had constantly wanted a debate on vaccines with some of the top experts, and in fact, well before 2024, about a decade earlier, I knew him. He asked me to try to set up that debate. I tried and couldn't do it, okay, because the folks who are from the official circles and real scientists and doctors didn't want to entertain Bobby Kennedy Jr. Well, now he's the head of Health and Human Services. So Bobby, right back at you now. So would you debate Susan Menares on vaccines on the Young Turks? I extend the invitation to both of you. My guess is now that he's in power, he ain't gonna debate anybody, okay? He's gonna run for the hills and he's gonna do whatever he wants. He's gonna fire whoever is making sense. He's not gonna present any evidence, and he's just gonna do his, pet peeve project that he's had for his whole life. And then if it turns out he's wrong, since he doesn't have any evidence, well, it's not his health on the line, it's our health on the line.
Yeah.
So it's absurd. You're supposed to be protecting our health, not making it worse. And by the way, what happened to all the stuff about, we're gonna get better diet and you're gonna go after big food and all the processed foods and stuff? That sounded interesting. Oh, right, they're huge donors. And all of a sudden, there's none of that talk, okay? Yeah. So all the positive stuff flushed down the toilet, whatever existed. And by the way, the first thing that he talked about when he first got in office was the most important thing for America's health was to make sure you agree with Israel. And I'm not making it up, it was from the Health and Human Services. So I don't know what he's on and how much damage the brainworms did, but protecting Israel has nothing to do with our health. It might have something to do with his health. I don't know what that's about, but it doesn't have anything to do with our health. So right now, his stewardship of HHS has been an epic disaster.
Yeah. Why don't we take our final break? We'll come back with more after this.
All right, let's go to Super Chat. HH says, how about a class action lawsuit against AIPAC? All right, I didn't even think about that. I don't know how we would do that, but I like that you're thinking. I'm gonna put some thought behind that. Smartest audience in the country. Let's see if we can come up with something interesting there. Mark Jacobs says, Jen, can you give a shout out to my sister Jennifer? She recently gave birth to a baby girl. Thank you. All right, Jennifer, congrats. Love that. Hey guys, if you got good stories Spread the joy. Go to tyt.com/joy, where we put up, you guys put up stories that gave you joy. And you can also put up questions and thoughts and etc. And it's a beautiful little community there where we try to bring each other joy. Grizz, my homie from the streets, writes in, at this point, a party with one issue could win the presidency. The No Money for Israel party. #NoMo 2028.
NoMo.
That's not a bad idea either. I mean, if somebody made it part of their platform, they would be much more likely to win. But of course, the current two parties. But look, you win the primary in 2028, then you change the Democratic Party. So if somebody like Ro Khanna or Jon Stewart or whoever it might be wins the primary in 2028, and he says that's it, our position is no more money to Israel, and from then on, the Democratic position is no more money to Israel. So as things are today, of course, no one in Democratic leadership or Republican leadership would dare defy Israel. Dami Mommy Matrix says, Senator Turner is looking radiant as always, John looking dashing, and Cenk, hello, you look nice too, my guy. No, it's the way I read it. Okay, thank you, we appreciate it.
Radiant, receive that.
Yeah, and I agree. Pro Patrick says, hi all, I agree with MTG on supporting Gaza. We need to unite on both sides on the things we agree on. Take the win, agreed. All of America, here we go. ShopTYT.com. Michael Catalano says, I'm an Ohioan from Dayton, but I go to Cleveland all the time and love that area. It's so special. I'm still sad you lost that race. We'll get him next time. Well, we'll see. Okay, that was me adding, we'll get him next time. Amy Megason, but it was not me adding my homie from the streets. That was in Grizz's handle, okay, from the earlier comment. Amy Megason says, Nina is the power in the power panel. Here. Brianne Ramett says, love Nina's glasses. Lots of love out there. Agreed. Joseph Stewart with a note about programming. Incredible interview with the Palestinian Australian doctor yesterday, Jane. That bloke is an Aussie hero who represents the ever-growing sentiment of Australia's stance on the Gaza genocide. Agreed. On Twitch, Dave Schmidt 311 gifted 2 subs because he's an American hero. He's done that so often. Dave, we really appreciate you. You're wonderful for doing that. And a lot of other folks re-signed up, and we appreciate you guys for that as well. On our website, tyt.com, concept of a username says AIPAC failed to end TikTok, thankfully. TikTok has been one of the only fact-based sources for truthful reporting from Gaza, and that's because it was real people reporting. Once you go to official reporters, they then pervert the news to turn it into marketing and propaganda for different powerful forces, including Israel. But unfortunately, Israel is getting someone inside TikTok next month. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Nina with you, and also Sonny, who just joined on YouTube, and Edwin Baez. Thank you for gifting a membership. Appreciate it. John.
Okay, let's have a little bit of our brand of fun, starting with this.
Dave Weigel, the great Dave Weigel at Semaphore, breaking a big story, the lead story over at Semaphore. Wait for it. Republican voters now 53-47 support President Trump running for a 3rd term. I kid you not. Told you this day was coming. Of course.
So that, of course, is Steve Bannon just delighting in the fact that the GOP is choosing its love for dear leader Donald Trump over their supposed respect for the Constitution. And despite the fact that it's the most clear thing in politics that Trump cannot run for a 3rd term, they're like, yeah, no, he should. Actually, we would prefer that. And of course, Steve Bannon wants that. Dude hates democracy. He would love to set it aside and rule forever with Donald Trump. But thankfully, while Republicans narrowly want Donald Trump to run for a 3rd term, everyone who is not a Republican absolutely despises the idea. And so only 27% of the country at large, which is less than what I consider to be like the MAGA base even, of like 32, 33%. So not even all of them think he should. Only 6% of Democrats think he should. Maybe they think they're being clever and they think that he would lose, I don't know. 17% of independents. So here, independents, as in so many things in polling these months, I don't know if you've noticed the pattern, independents look way more like Democrats than they do like Republicans in this. 53% of Republicans think he should run. Now, a slightly different question is, do you think he will actually run? And there, both Democrats and independents are more likely to say yes than Republicans are. Exactly half of independents and the majority of Democrats think that he will. And if they think that, maybe that's because Trump constantly says that he's going to, and all of his supporters like Steve Bannon keep saying that he should, and they all seem to love the idea of it. That said, it doesn't mean that it's going to happen. Even if Donald Trump did want to run again in 2028, there is an obstacle to that. It's that he would have to live that long. And so it might not actually happen, but there does seem to be a growing desire on the right for it to happen. Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so unfortunately, I again share a part of Steve Bannon's opinion, which is told you, yeah, he wants to run, Bannon wants him to run, a bunch of Republicans want him to run. They don't respect the Constitution at all. The part I obviously disagree with is that he should run. No, he should not run. Ridiculous. So look, we're doing but I'll give you some nuance on it. First of all, we're doing a poll on tyt.com. What do you think about Trump running for a third term? A, if he gets a constitutional amendment, it's fine. B, if he tries without an amendment, he's an un-American piece of, you know what? C is A plus B, a rare answer for us. And then D is, who cares about the Constitution? Let's just start making up laws. Okay, so some of you, I guess, might be in that category, including Steve Bannon. Look, guys, there is a way to get past the constitutional block on running more than twice, and that is a constitutional amendment. So good luck. Nobody's stopping you, and that's perfectly legal. Go for it, okay? You're gonna need 3/4 of the states to ratify, and if you think you're gonna get 13 blue states to say, oh yeah, let's just, but by the way, I mean, maybe you would, because then Obama would be back in the game, right? So be careful what you wish for. But anyways, it's in a realistic world, of course that's not gonna happen. So if you're not gonna do it the legal way, I have a question, what way are you going to do it? Because the Constitution is not unclear about this. It is crystal clear. And so, if you want here, I'll tell you, okay, graphic 3, how is this for clear? Section 1 of 22nd Amendment, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. The end, okay, so what are you gonna do? So the only other option is to be lawless, to destroy the Constitution, and that means you hate America and you hate our system. I don't mean the system that the establishment has, one of corruption. We don't like that either. I mean our constitutional republic. So I need you to be honest about it. Like MAGA prides itself on saying whatever the hell they want, right? And sometimes that winds up being a decent thing when they flip on Epstein and some, as we described earlier in the show now, challenging Israel. A lot of times it's disastrous when they're super honest. But here, tell us, what's your honest plan? Is it to break the law? Is it to burn the Constitution? Is it to say that you don't care about the Constitution or this country and you just like to have an authoritarian form of government? That's what the left was worried about. And it sounds like with Steve Bannon and Donald Trump, and now 53% of Republicans are going, yeah, screw the Constitution, who cares? I mean, you're telling on yourself, you're proving us right. So unfortunately, this is exactly what we worried about. Last thing for me for now is, guys, I debated, I don't know, half a dozen, a lot of conservatives right before the election about Trump versus Kamala Harris. And my main argument to them was, he does not value the Constitution at all. He's set to terminate it after he lost in 2020. And obviously after he lost, he tried to basically do a coup to get back in charge because he doesn't care about democracy and he doesn't care about the Constitution. That was a rare thing from the Democrats that was not just a talking point, it was actually true, right? And they say, oh, no, he'll respect the Constitution, he loves the Constitution. And here we are going, no, who cares what the Constitution says? I want to be in charge. And by the way, tons and tons of right wingers going, power is power. Yep. Who cares about America? Who cares about, they don't say who cares about America or democracy. Although some of them now do say like, democracy, no, we're a republic, wink, wink, wink. Like, no, brother, but republic means democracy. democracy is within a constitutional republic. That's so like you think you're being clever, but what you're doing is you're setting up an excuse to go authoritarian. So if you hate democracy or you hate America or you hate our Constitution, be honest about it. Don't be a little bitch and pretend that you don't hate it, because you obviously do. And you value Trump more than you value America. So do us the favor of being honest. All right, Nina, what do you think?
I mean, yeah, we're a nation of laws until we're not. I love that talking point that the right uses on other things, particularly in this point, immigration. We're a nation of laws, or law and order. But that goes right out the window when it comes to whether or not President Donald J. Trump should run a third term without following the pattern that you laid out, Jink, which would make it legal, is to have the Constitutional Convention and amend the Constitution. So they're basically saying no worries, and absolute power corrupts absolutely, and it really, people get inebriated by it. It is very seductive, and we're seeing this play out in real time, where these same people, I bet you, are the people who are about law and order in other places and other phases in this country, but not when it comes to this. They are absolutely willing, it seems, to defy the United States Constitution.
And in the same, my final point, in the same way that I think Trump continually making a joke of it sort of normalizes it for a lot of regular right-wingers, Trump also seems to be feeding off of them too. I mean, twice in the last week, he's like, some people call me a dictator, but if I stop crime, am I really a dictator? Maybe it's a good thing to be a dictator or whatever. Like that, for him, even that's pretty open, like sort of talking about maybe our system of government isn't what it once was.
Yeah, he always adds. Sorry, Nina, what were you gonna say?
No, it's seductive, and that's why he's priming the pump, if you will.
Yeah,
to John's point.
Yeah, I was gonna say testing the waters, same thing, right? So the right wing will often excuse it with, oh, he's just trolling, he's just having fun with it. Oh, you guys are falling for it, etc. Nah, he's testing the waters. So that's why he says, no, I'm not a dictator. But some people are saying they want a dictator. Some people think that a dictator would handle crime better, right? That's his way of testing the waters, right? I don't know if I'm gonna run for a third term, but I could do whatever I want. The president could do anything he wants. It's not true, that's not our system, right? So, and by the way, if you think, oh, he's just trolling, you guys are being ridiculous, then why did 53% of Republicans say they want him to do it? Are they trolling too? Okay, that's a very convenient excuse whenever you get caught being un-American. Yeah. Okay, all right, we're out of time. All right, thank you, Nina. Great to have you on. Everybody check out Damage Report every day. We appreciate it.
I don't know, Jink, does that work for us? Can we just say we're trolling? Would that work for us?
Oh, yeah. No, but that's the thing. If we did, which by the way, a lot of times I am joking. And in fact, when I do it, when I'm actually joking and obviously joking, they still say, no, it doesn't count. No, we're gonna take it literally, right? So exact opposite, but also mainstream media does the same thing. But anyways, all right, we gotta run. But when we come back, guys, got a lot of amazing stories for you all, including Mike Johnson and so many Republicans saying, of course the real problem isn't guns, okay? No, the real problem is liberals. That's why we have and trans people. That's why we have mass shootings. Because you remember how, I want to save it for the story, but all these hundreds of mass shooters we've covered on the Young Turks alone, they were all trans, right? I mean, it's absurd, insane. Anyway, we'll do that when we come back. Our audience has given us everything, so we couldn't be more connected. When we first started, people would start giving us directions and say, okay, the mics are too large, move them. Turn them into lav mics. I mean, they were incredible. And then one guy walked in and gave us a really expensive switcher and said, you guys need this, and walked out. Okay, it's amazing. They helped us build a studio. They did a $2 million funding campaign for us. And so they really are us. We do this show together to the point where some of our hosts are even former listeners. So when we say that the audience is part of TYT, we really mean it.
Think what the audience also appreciates is especially if they're members, they really get an inside look into who we are, our personal lives, what drives and motivates us. It goes beyond just storytelling. I think that what we do is allow our viewers and our listeners into our daily lives, and we give them kind of like this inside look into everything that we're passionate about and why it is that we're doing what we're doing, right? Like the motivation behind what we're doing, I think is important for our audience to know, and we're not shy about sharing that with them. And it's different from what people typically see in legacy media outlets where everything is kind of dry and robotic and there's really no personality or authenticity that comes along with it. Oftentimes when we're doing the show, I don't really think of it as me telling them stories. I think of it as us having a mutual respect and conversation with one another. And as I said earlier, I mean, not only do I feel that through the work I do, I'm informing our audience, but they inform me oftentimes as well. You know, they'll pitch stories to us. They'll tell us, you know, a certain perspective or angle to a story that we might have missed. And I love it.
You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like tyt.com/join, and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitsing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny Pie. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat.
Animals are innocent.
Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing.
I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Such a big fan. Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, aka Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. So I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way. Referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes. Drop it like it's Kamala Harris's Secret Service protection. Ouch. All right, that story's coming up in a little bit. Cenk Uygur, Yasmin Aaliyah Khan, and Elliot Morgan. Elliot and Yaz are both on Rebel HQ. Great to have you guys here today. Got a lot of interesting and fun stories for you all. And by the way, shout out to Brendan1986 who just joined through tyt.com/join. We love that. All right, guys, let's get started because we got a lot of news. Yaz, what do you got?
All right, quick one to start with. Let's roll the tape. We didn't prosecute Hillary Clinton. We did not go after her. We did not lock her up. We tried to take the high road. They didn't accept the olive branch. They tried to ruin Trump personally, Trump professionally, Trump's presidency, and many around him. You know, they're the ones who locked up Steve Bannon for contempt of Congress, Peter Navarro for contempt of Congress. We didn't try to lock up Merrick Garland when he committed it. It's time. I'm done taking the high road. They have to suffer. They have to have real skin in the game before they will accept reality.
Megyn Kelly is one of many right-wing commentators who are admitting that President Donald Trump is setting out on a revenge tour against his enemies. And those commentators aren't just saying the quiet part out loud, they're even cheering on Trump's campaign of retribution. So we'll show you more of them in a minute. But first, Cenk, what do you think about this very disturbing trend? And also, did you know that this whole time the right has been taking the high road? I didn't know that.
Yeah. We're going to show you the high road that the right wing has been taking in video form in just a little bit. So make sure you want to stick around to see that. So I'm always greatly amused by that. We'll talk about that in a second too. But also there is a little bit of hypocrisy where the establishment holds certain people to account and not others. There is a kernel of truth in that. I want to come back and explain that as well. But what makes no sense to me is, oh, the other side did something bad, so now we're also going to do something bad. What? So it's like saying, you know what? The Republicans cut taxes for the rich. So now that Bernie Sanders is in, we're gonna cut taxes for the rich too. Wait, why would we do that? We said we were against that the whole time. The Republicans said they were against lawfare the whole time, and now they get into office and they're like, we love lawfare. We wanna do it even more than the other side. Oh, so you were never against it. You were just bothered that it was done to you, but you couldn't wait to do it to others. So thank you for telling on yourself and letting us know that you have no principles at all. And you're gonna see a lot more of that right now.
All right, so as Cenk said, before we get any further, let's all remind ourselves of what Trump had to say about Megyn Kelly back in 2015.
She gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. And, you know, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
That's awkward. So that aside, let's turn to all of the other right-wing commentators who are calling for Trump to punish his enemies. Take a look.
Some people say it's retribution. I say, who cares?
And if you're a bully and you hit somebody and they don't hit you back, you're gonna keep bullying the bejesus out of them.
To be honest with you, it clearly is payback time. Adam Schiff, Big Tish, and now John Bolton, you'd have to be blind to not see this. But you'd have to be a fool to not have expected it. People need to be punished for what they have done because they started it. They started this. He didn't start it, they started it.
Payback, retribution, call it whatever you want. An eye for an eye. Sometimes two wrongs can make a right.
Retribution, you bet it is. And it should be. Because when you are in a war for power, and we very much are in a war for power, you had better hit back and let the enemy know that it can come right back to him.
So this is kind of an interesting situation that we have all found ourselves in right now. So even when the Democrats were in power, when we had the White House, there was talk of fear of retribution, that, you know, if we go after all these people who have legitimately done things that were illegal and were worthy of, you know, conviction and jail time, that, you know, once the right went back into the White House, that they would kind of do exactly what they're doing now. And they would do it just out of revenge and not out of any kind of like seeking actual justice. So especially when people like Megyn Kelly are talking about, you know, oh, we've been taking the high road this whole time. They act like the people who were locked up during the Biden years or whenever, that they didn't legitimately do things that were illegal and worthy, again, of conviction. And that's simply not the case. But what the interesting situation that we're finding ourselves in, that I mentioned earlier, is that there are so many people on both sides of the aisle who are doing things that are legally dubious and questionable. And it's like, why do we find ourselves in the position of deciding what is worth prosecuting, what is worth pursuing, and what just isn't for political reasons? So Elliot, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this?
I mean, I just can't get over how dorky these guys sound when they try to do this like tough rhetoric. It does crack me up. I mean, they talk like they're these warriors, and there's something about it I can't buy at all. I also think that they're kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. I don't find this particularly surprising because this administration seems to be hitting kind of a critical mass where everyone is recognizing that, they've jumped the shark essentially. And in that situation, you have two options. You can either run away and you can admit that you were wrong and that you sided with the wrong side, or you can dig your heels in further and embrace all of the things that you see clearly before you. So I think them embracing this bullying aspect is what they have to do. Their paychecks are coming essentially from this administration. It also reminds me of this time I went to therapy, and I remember talking to my therapist and just like venting, and I was all upset about something. And then he just goes, "How old do you feel right now?" And I was like, I don't know, 30 something. And he was like, well, you sound maybe like, I would say 11 years old. And so I feel like these folks should be like, hey, how old do you feel when you're talking like this? When they did it to me, you sound like a kid. And I think that is for them a feature and not a bug. So that's my rant about it.
I like your therapist. Kind of a badass.
He's a good guy.
All right, so let's break this down. Trump's going after John Bolton. We all hate John Bolton. Any reasonable, decent person would. He's one of the neocons that can't stop starting wars and et cetera. So, okay, but if I was in charge, would I put John Bolton in my government? Oh, hell no. No way, right? And Trump also took away his security clearance when he came back in. I like that he did that. I don't think he should have a security clearance. I don't trust him. I don't know who he's sharing that information with. So no problem on that front. And I don't care if you call it retribution or anything else, okay? But then they go to arrest him. And look, you can tell from the conservative reaction, they're all confessing. We have no evidence. This is all made up. But now, yeah, so what? Payback, retribution, revenge, right? But brother, I hate him too, but this isn't what you do. This is crazy. And so, like they said, oh, he classified intelligence. But he asked the government before writing the book, is this okay? Is this classified or not? The government came back to him and said, it's not classified. It's okay, you can print it. He prints it, and then Trump gets into office, changed our mind. That's not a thing. There's no changed our mind. You can't ex post facto go, even though I gave you permission, I'm now retracting it and arresting you. And you can tell because none of them are defending it. None of the right wingers are defending it. They're just saying, yeah, payback, so what? But guys, so let me talk about both the hypocrisy and payback. And I'm not your regular Democrat or leftist, right? So number one, if you say to me, payback's okay, I say, yeah, depends, right? So what does it depend on? Okay, the Republicans gerrymander Texas, Democrats should gerrymander California. Payback's a bitch. That's political, right? Mitch McConnell broke the record on filibusters. Well, then blocking any bill the Democrats could do when they were in majority. So then Democrats should also do filibuster. I hate filibusters, but if one side is going to do a form of a political tactic, then the other side gets to do it. By the way, also vice versa. If the Democrats broke the record on filibusters, then the Republicans get to do filibusters. But guys, that is in the realm of politics. When you get into the realm of law, you can't just make stuff up and arrest people for things they didn't do. That's not legitimate retribution. That is going outside the law, and that is getting to an authoritarian form of government. That is not what America is about. So is there hypocrisy in how the law is applied? All the time, right? So that there's a kernel of truth in that for sure. So for example, on the contempt of Congress. So Steve Bannon and Navarro were brazenly in contempt. I think they should have gone to jail. On the other hand, do I see establishment figures that are in contempt of Congress from time to time and they don't go to jail? Yeah. Why? And both Democrats and Republicans, and nobody ever explains. If you leak something and it's against the powerful, you're going to be in a world of trouble. You're either going to get arrested and tortured like Chelsea Manning was, or you're going to have to escape to Russia and live there the rest of your life. Because why? You leaked information that was helpful to the American people, but not to the people in charge. Now, on the other hand, open up the New York Times or Washington Post on any given day, and you'll see leak after leak after leak, and that is in favor of the powerful. And no one is ever, forget prosecuted, nobody even looks into it. Who did that goddamn leak? You told me leaks were like so bad you have to hide in Russia the rest of your life. Here's a leak and you're not doing anything about it. So Look, if I'm not an establishment figure, I can't stand those guys. So if you give me a legitimate hypocrisy, okay, I'm with you, right? But we cannot play around with the law because then we get into chaos and lawlessness. And then when you're in lawlessness, who gets to decide? Raw power gets to decide. And that isn't America. That isn't our system of government. I hate it. I don't want any part of it. I got more, but yeah, it's back to you.
Yeah, if this is the party of law and order, and that's the thing that they say that they care about, then fine. Like, I don't know anybody on the left who would say if there is credible evidence against somebody that they have done something illegal, that I would be opposed to that person being rightfully punished for the thing that they did, especially when the thing that they did is something that could impact millions of Americans across the country. So like, if they have the evidence, then great, show us the evidence and then prosecute it, but they really just don't have a whole lot to go on with a lot of these things that they're wanting to happen, because again, like I said, like the left has no problem with law and order, with the justice system whenever it is working the way it's supposed to work. But whenever you engage in the so-called lawfare, it becomes a wild, wild west, right? I mean, whoever is in power, whichever district judge is over here and whichever judge is over here, it all is just like, it's all about feelings, And so much of our justice system is supposed to kind of eliminate feelings. I know it's impossible to do that. You try to focus on the evidence, you try to focus on the logic of things, and it is not a perfect system. It is highly fallible, but we do our best, or we're supposed to do our best to kind of get around some of those things. But what we're seeing here is just complete politicization of the justice system to the point where it could ruin lives, it could ruin careers, and for what? I don't know. So
yeah. So look, guys. It can get to an absurdity. So for example, like I always think shoe on the other foot, right? So if Bernie had won the presidency and I'm advising him and he said, hey, let's arrest Rick Scott. I'd be like, ooh, I like that kind of talk. Why do I like that kind of talk? Because his company did the largest Medicare fraud in American history and he got away with it. And that, I'm never gonna let that go. Okay, so then I would say, okay, look into it. Is there any charges on Rick Scott? Because his company actually did plead guilty, so that's super legitimate. And then they would come back and tell me, no, the statute of limitations ran out. So there's nothing you could do about it, you'd have to go outside the law. And if Bernie at that point said, yeah, let's go outside the law and let's just arrest him anyway, I would immediately quit and I would tell the world this guy's lawless and violating the core principles of America. Even though I loathe Rick Scott and I know he did it because his company confessed. No, we have to stick within the law. And the argument is so absurd. Like, for example, Senator Menendez was a Democrat from New Jersey. He took bribes from Egypt and he got convicted for it. It was a hilarious story, you guys probably remember. He had gold bars, money stuffed into his suits, clownorama, right? So under the Megyn Kelly and Greg Gutfeld line of thinking, when the Republicans get back in charge, retribution, baby, now we're gonna take gold bars from Egypt. Wait, what? No, you're not supposed to do the wrong things that other administrations did. So, but to be fair, they are the kings of the high road. And so you have to respect them for that. So let's show you some of the high road that Trump has taken.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account.
Only Rosie O'Donnell. She gets out and she starts asking me all sorts of ridiculous questions. And, you could see there was blood coming out of her eyes, blood coming out of her wherever.
We will root out the communists, Marxists, fascists, and the radical left thugs that live like vermin within the confines of our country. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing crime, they're rapists, and some, I assume, are good people. I supported him, he lost, he let us down. But, he lost. So I never liked him as much after that, because I don't like losers. But Frank, let me get to it. He hit me. He's not a war hero. He's a war hero. He's a war hero. 5.5 years. He's a war hero because he was captured. I like people that weren't captured, okay? I hate to tell you. They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. And you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay?
High road. Elliot, any last thoughts?
I mean, I think we always hear that story about how one of the reasons Trump decided to run for office was because Obama made fun of him at the White House press, whatever it was. And I just wish in hindsight that who had made fun of him had been like a comedian, because Trump kills as a roast comedian. I mean, he knows what he's doing in that capacity. Unfortunately, he's the president. So that's my final thought.
I like the idea of him being like wanting to take vengeance and retribution on other roasters.
I think it was Seth Meyers
Lock him up.
played a significant role in giving us the Trump candidate for president in 2016. So thanks, Seth.
There you go.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe we lock up Seth Meyers and be done with it.
Yeah, let's get that going.
I'm kidding, Seth. I'm kidding. And more importantly, Republicans, I'm kidding. Don't lock up Seth Meyers.
Thank you for clarifying that.
It's a joke. It was a joke. It was a joke.
All right. Next story? No, break. Okay.
Yeah, we're going to break.
Yeah. So Republicans have thoughts on shooters. You know, Trump's health. That's a super interesting story. What is going on there? It turns out that's a thing. Okay, drums. We'll be back. All right, so let's go through YouTube members first. Mark Francis 076 writes in, someday our national nightmare will be over. We'll make it through this crap, but we'll be covered in crap. Yep. Andy Minion 2300 says, if this has been them on the high road, I legit cringe to imagine the low road. So that's a great way of putting it, brother. Way to go. On Twitch, the OG Froman says, you should have included him making fun of the handicap reporter. That messed me up. You're right about that. Micrograms with another great comment. Facts don't care about your feelings, but they do care about mine, MAGA. Well, you earned it, MAGA. Little Mac McChee says, as always, I believe in accountability on both sides of the aisle. And yes, as a veteran, the tough guy verbiage from these talking heads is always humorous. Indeed, brother. This is on tyt.com. Concept of a username says, everything the right says to fearmonger about is them actually telling us their actual plans. So yes, if a Republican is talking, they're kind of lying, but they're also revealing their playbook. I think there's a lot of truth to that too for the Republican politicians. Wang Jun says, the thought of Jesse Waters trying to bully someone is just hilarious to me. Dude, you're about as intimidating as a slight breeze. I like that. Maybe I'll start calling Jesse Waters Light Breeze from now on. Yeah, I changed it to light. Funkin' for Fun says, didn't they want to kill Fauci? Yeah, but to be fair, that was the high road. They're crazy. Anyway, Eclectic Miscellaneous says, am I crazy or didn't Megyn Kelly used to be halfway sane? If she's the sane part of the Republican Party and even she's calling for Trump to go on a witch hunt against anyone who opposes him, we're in deep doo-doo. Well, Eclectic, I think that's actually a super interesting example, because you're right. She was even more calm, whatever, less radical when she was on Fox News. At NBC, she was, center right. Like you could barely tell she was a right winger. Isn't it interesting how they tell their audience different things depending on what platform they're on and who's paying them? I always find that to be super interesting. And now the good news about that is that as all of them have left cable news, or most of them have, Tucker and Megyn Kelly and so many others, all of a sudden they're being honest about Israel. So it has an upside. Once they're unleashed, they could finally tell you about money in politics and Israel and AIPAC and all these other things. The downside is when they're unleashed, you get to hear their real opinions, and you get plenty of cuckoo for those Cocoa Puffs. So Jarv Jan Bongino says Megan clearly has zero self-respect after deciding to kiss the ass of the dude that insulted her like that. To which I say, audience capture is a hell of a drug. Yeah, I don't bow down like that, but a lot of folks do. Anyway, guys, check this out too. ShopTYT.com. 100% of the profits goes to Palestine Children's Relief Fund. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Elliot, and Yaz with you guys, but also Shohida Abdullah, K.Life, and Ikitaku, thank you for joining. Drew Wilson, I don't know if you gave another 50, but I give you a shout out for the first 50 anyway. You guys are all amazing for giving the memberships, joining up, etc. You can also do it through tyt.com/join. And I was telling folks about this shirt during the break in case you haven't seen it. So just trying to support the Palestinian cause of getting a state, ending the genocide, etc. The entire Free Palestine collection, 100% of the profits goes to the Palestine Children's Relief Fund. All right, Yaz, what's next?
Thoughts and prayers are next. Let's roll it.
And I have felt a mixture of anger and a lot of anger and emotional exhaustion about this today, as I'm sure many of you have, because we have been here so many times. And yet again, like clockwork, half of the politicians in our country have little more to offer than thoughts and prayers. That is all they are offering.
It's incredible to me that Jen Psaki and Gavin Newsom and others would attack religion, diminish the faith of millions of Americans at a time of such great tragedy. At the end of the day, the problem is not guns, okay, Jen Psaki? The problem is the human heart.
All right, Republicans like Mike Johnson are deeply offended that MSNBC host Jen Psaki is calling them out for their regurgitated, the same old stuff that we've been hearing from them for 20, 30 years now. So after the horrific shooting in Minneapolis that left 2 children dead, Republican lawmakers and hosts did what they always do every single time. They offer their thoughts and prayers, and then they said guns are not the issue. So we'll hear what Mike Johnson believes the best solution is in a second. But first, Cenk, I know I've brought this story up before, but I remember watching in 2018, there was a debate between Ted Cruz and Beto O'Rourke, who was going for his seat. And he brought up gun control. It came up because that was then and is still a big issue. And Beto had all these things that he was going to do to eliminate these unnecessary deaths due to gun violence in the country. And Ted Cruz said, "You know what? I don't like that. I don't like that you're disparaging thoughts and prayers, because I think we need more prayer in this country." And people cheered for him. And it was like all he just said to you was that he is not going to do anything to protect your children or to protect you from gun violence in the state of Texas, and he got reelected. So what are your thoughts, Cenk?
Yeah, so in a minute, we've got their hypocrisy on thoughts and prayers. We've got their hypocrisy on so-called solutions for this problem. So definitely stick around for that because it's quite revealing. But I wanted to just quickly say, Mike Johnson says, the real problem isn't guns, it's the human heart. It's true, the problem is the human heart stops when you fire a bullet through it. So that's the issue. I mean, really? The real problem is the human heart? All of our hearts are diseased, or some of our hearts are diseased? And what are you gonna do about it, brother? How are you gonna fix the human heart? This is just empty nonsense drivel. And again, we're gonna show to you in a second the hypocrisy on this that proves it's drivel.
Of course. All right, so on that, here is more from Mike Johnson.
There are a lot of common sense solutions, things that can be done to protect children at schools and in churches that do not involve taking away the constitutional rights of law-abiding American citizens. This is not a time to politicize these issues. We mourn for the families, the community that's affected there. At the end of the day, the problem is not guns, okay, Jen Psaki? The problem is the human heart. It's mental health. There are things that we can do, solutions that we can come together to handle, but this is not the time to be
Do you think
going into it.
specifically?
All right, well, Republican Mike Johnson is very, very worried about mental health and the mental health crisis in this country. But That's interesting because the so-called big beautiful bill that was pushed and promoted by Mike Johnson himself is going to kick millions of people off of their health insurance, which will mean in turn that fewer people are getting access to good mental health care. So this was an NPR headline from literally yesterday. It said Speaker Johnson slashed Medicaid. His constituents could lose health services. And this is from a KFF report back in April when Trump's spending bill was being debated. It says Republicans in Congress are targeting a system of taxes that some states, including Louisiana, levy on hospitals and other health providers to draw down more federal Medicaid funding. That money helps finance what are known as supplemental payments to providers. Some conservatives belittle the extra funding as money laundering. And in Johnson's Louisiana district, it says the supplemental payments help pay to provide mental health services at 3 outpatient clinics. If that $4 million went away, we would have to limit services. It's just that simple. So here's another NPR headline. This one's from March. It says Trump team revokes $11 billion in funding for addiction, mental health care. So the idea that Republican lawmakers suddenly out of nowhere care about mental health care is complete nonsense. And it's obviously just a distraction. They're just trying to come up with a different line because maybe the other one got stale a little bit. Thoughts and prayers can only go so far. Maybe it has like a shelf life of 20, 30 years, and then you have to come up with something else to freshen it up a little bit. So Johnson's not the only one that's angry that they're getting called out about all of this. Here is Caroline Leavitt.
I saw the comments of my predecessor, Ms. Psaki, and frankly, I think they're incredibly insensitive and disrespectful to the tens of millions of Americans of faith across this country who believe in the power of prayer. It's disrespectful to the millions of Americans of faith. And I would encourage Ms. Psaki to pray for these families themselves who need it right now more than ever.
All right, we're gonna hear more from Leavitt in a second because a reporter asked her a truly insane question. It was kind of disgusting, but first, Cenk, they're never gonna solve this problem. If they wanted to solve this problem, they would solve the problem. So what they do, we have to do this every time there's a shooting, and I'm so exhausted by it. We have to go through the same thing. They say thoughts and prayers. We say, no, do more than thoughts and prayers. They say, oh, that's not nice how you don't like our thoughts and prayers. And we say, who cares, right? I don't care if I'm being disrespectful now to the people of faith, because the people of faith are the ones who are saying, you know what, it's fine if children feel unsafe going to school. But also there's the question of why would they do anything? Because who makes money off of there being less guns on the streets in this country? Nobody. Who makes money from there being more guns on the streets? Plenty of people, including plenty of our Congress people. And I think that's a big part of what this all comes down to. And that's not even saying anything. It's so obvious. But what's sad is that they're going to let children continue to die. And it's so hypocritical because at the same time, they're also saying things like, oh, all we care about is the children. All they care about is the children. That is the one redeeming quality that they have on the right. But yet, whenever children die, they just get sad about it, but they say we're not gonna do anything about it. So Elliot, what are your thoughts here?
I mean, I got a whole lot of thoughts on this. For one, leave it to the Christian nationalists who hear about Christian children getting gunned down and then 12 hours later are like, actually, also we're the victims, if you think about it. And I'm happy to hear that Speaker Johnson is bringing up something like mental health. I study psychology and I'm working toward a dissertation in it. And in the field of psychology that I study, there are these terms called repression and projection, which most people know basically what it is, but you repress things that you have a hard time integrating into your awareness. And when you do that, the first thing you do is you project it outward. So I also think when Speaker Johnson talks about how this problem is just the human heart, that he should ask himself whether or not it's only the human hearts of the people committing these atrocities, or if maybe there's something going on with him. Because his job as a politician is to act on behalf of the polis, the people, and not psychoanalyze what's going on. Leave that to other people. And I also think at the end of the day, what they're doing here is they're just reframing these issues in a way that is misrepresenting their opponents, like saying that people are on the left are inherently against thoughts and prayers is just a misrepresentation of what the stance is. Saying that they want to take all of your guns is a misrepresentation of what the stance is. And it gives their base this idea that everything is a very simple binary situation, and it prevents them from actually looking into it and finding that there's nuance in these situations. So it's incredibly frustrating.
Okay, so there's a bunch of hypocrisy here. So we pointed out, so the real problem is mental health, right? Okay, then let's do mental health. No way I'm gonna defund mental health. Okay, then you're full of crap. You didn't think that was a problem. You're just trying to avoid regulating guns. Okay, then they say, oh my God, the Democrats are disrespectful to the religious people in this country. Okay, first of all, we're talking about disrespectful from the guys who are all kissing Donald Trump's ass. The same Donald Trump who said, if you're famous, you just grab women by the genitals and they let you do it. Let alone 1,000 horrific things he said. We're talking about disrespect. We're talking about disrespect. Please spare me. Like, it's so obviously hypocritical that you look ridiculous. Okay, now go to the core of the thoughts and prayers nonsense. Okay, so when Donald Trump was charged with all those different crimes, if we said, hey, listen, you know what? You say that we shouldn't charge him. No, we're not gonna fix that. No, we're gonna charge him and we're gonna try to put him in jail. But thoughts and prayers to Donald Trump. We said, whoa, we solved it. We did thoughts and prayers. They would have said, oh, that's outrageous. That doesn't do anything for Donald Trump. Or fill in the blank on any issue they care about, right? Yeah, that's our point. We're not against thoughts and prayers. You can have all the thoughts and prayers you want, but it doesn't go to addressing the issue. You're saying we're not attacking the thoughts and prayers. We're attacking you trying to distract everyone by pretending that thoughts and prayers are going to solve this. And by the way, if they were going to, then why do we continue to have endless mass shootings? We have now had billions of thoughts and prayers, and nevertheless, the mass shootings continue unabated. So this is all a distraction. And it always ties back to the same exact issue. What, gun control? No, money in politics. So whether it's Israel, whether it's big oil, the wars we're dragged into, big pharma saying we can't negotiate drug prices, or the shootings. So the Democrats, some Democrats, and in fact a lot of Democrats used to get money from the NRA. And when they did, you'd be surprised to find out that the Democrats were all about thoughts and prayers, and they didn't really want to do anything about gun control. Now they stopped taking the money from the NRA, and now they do want to do gun control. The Republicans are still taking money from the NRA, and all of a sudden, they're like, no, we're in the thoughts and prayers business, thoughts and prayers, right? Because it's corruption. Now, there are real voters who don't want any gun control, but most voters want the overwhelming majority of voters want some reasonable gun control at a minimum. So red flag laws, universal registration of guns, which polls in the 90s. Tons of gun owners, NRA members, all over 70%, even those categories, saying, yeah, you shouldn't be able to just buy a gun on the street and not have it be tracked, because that's what bad guys do. Good guys who own guns for protection and all the hunting and all that stuff, we don't have a problem with registering our guns. Nobody's gonna take my gun away, but yeah, I bought it from a legitimate dealer, here it is. But we can't even get that done. Why? It has nothing to do with thoughts and prayers or mental health. It's the money, Lebowski, and it's the money that Republican politicians are taking. So because if they cared about the issues and the principles, then they would agree with gun owners, and they would at least do the gun control that gun owners want in America, and they won't even do that. Because think about it, guys. Every time there's a shooting, people panic and they buy more guns, which allows the gun manufacturers to have even more money and gives a bigger portion of that to the Republican politicians to make sure that nothing ever gets solved. And then they drive me crazy with this whole politicizing stuff. Oh, they're politicizing this. After every tragedy, including this one, they immediately politicize, right? My God, if you had a Muslim do a terrorist act, do you think the Republicans are like, whoa, let's not politicize here. Has nothing to do with Islam, has nothing to do with this or that. Let's just do thoughts and prayers. No, they politicize immediately, right? And in fact, even in this one. So in this case, we had the strangest shooter I've ever seen, a trans neo-Nazi who hated Muslims and Jews and shot up a church. I've never seen anything like that, right? And this person was white for whatever it matters, and it doesn't matter at all. And so what do the Republicans do? They're like, aha, it's an epidemic of trans people doing gun shootings. Get rid of the trans. Look, guys, we've had maybe two trans shooters and about 200 white males. So don't get into identity politics here. It ain't gonna work out well for white males when it comes to mass shooters. But it isn't because they're white males or they're trans. It's mental health and the fact that we're in an ocean of guns. And any person who has any kind of violent tendencies can just be like, oh, here's a gun, here's 18 guns. They're all lying around. So I'll just pick them up and shoot anyone I like because there's almost no regulation. So they did politicize, and it is nonsense. There is real solutions, and they're desperately trying to avoid them.
Yeah, the craziest part about what you just said, Cenk, about like, oh, there's a gun, there's 18 guns, is that you're not even being hyperbolic at this point. Like that is a plausible thing. That is a thing that we've seen where these people will just stockpile these guns. I live in Texas. Everyone's got a gun out here, you know? I have guns in my house. It's not about having guns. It's about we want some kind of protections and reform around gun safety. And even in Texas, which is a red state, we have a lot of gun owners on the left and on the right. And even in Texas, people are like, we need some kind of protections. Like it's way too easy to get a gun, especially in this state. And it's all insanity, you know, every time they roll out the same thing, you know, they keep trying the same solution and it's not working, you know? So that is the definition of insanity. They just keep trying thoughts and prayers every time. And oh, I don't know, it didn't work, it happened again. Like, what are we doing? And then on the left, you know, are just people who are tired of all the thoughts and prayers. We're also insane, right? Like we're the ones who are still talking about like, this is crazy, but it's like, we can't even like figure out how to get this done. And unfortunately, we just don't have the power to do it right now because there's too much money. There's too much PAC money out there and that is influencing all of our politicians. So you are right though, Cenk, they get mad at us for politicizing things. They act like gun control is not a political issue, even though it absolutely is because it needs to come from the government. But then they decide to politicize things themselves. So since the shooter was reportedly transgender, as you mentioned, Cenk, conservatives are trying to drum up hate for trans people because why would they miss out on the opportunity in an obvious attempt to divert attention away from guns? So listen to what Dana Perino asked Mike Johnson during the same interview.
Do you think specifically that there has to be some sort of accountability on the transgender front?
I think so. I mean, there's a common denominator to so much of this, right? The last one of these school shootings that we all saw and remember was another transgender. I mean, this is a mental health component to this that cannot be overlooked. And I think lawmakers and policymakers need to look at that very carefully.
All right, then during the White House press conference yesterday, here's what a Daily Wire reporter asked Caroline Leavitt.
I've seen a lot of calls for action, you know, among these lawmakers saying that we shouldn't just be praying. One that I've seen on the right actually is calls for the FBI to institute a new class of domestic terrorism that involves trans ideology. Is that something that the administration would support?
I would have to check with the appropriate people on that.
All right, so is there an epidemic of trans shooters? Is trans ideology a national emergency? Well, Michael Jensen, the research director at the National Consortium for the Study of Terrorism and Responses to Terrorism says, surprisingly, no. Jensen's research has identified more than 1,000 mass casualty plots where the perpetrator clearly intended to kill or injure as many people as possible since the start of 2023. You can count on less than one hand how many of those were perpetrated by a transgender individual. So all of this, as I said, like why would they miss out on an opportunity to pin this on one of their targets of, you know, the various culture wars that they're lobbying against various marginalized groups in this country? It's also painfully disingenuous for Republicans to suddenly start talking about prioritizing mental health in this country as if that's anything that they have ever cared about. They're the side who said that facts don't care about your feelings. They're the side who makes living as any kind of minority in this country mentally stressful, to say the least, to millions of Americans who are living here in this country. And on top of that, they have this like wildly individualistic outlook on just how people should be living here, very Ayn Rand way of thinking, right? So, if you have mental health problems, that's your problem. You need to deal with it. You need to go find a therapist. You need to pay for that therapist because we're not going to help you. We're not going to cover that in your healthcare. We're going to take away all your healthcare, actually, which is probably just going to add to your mental load. And you know what? Just deal with it. And also, don't worry about all the things that this country has done to, dwindle away your mental health and to get it to the state where it's at. That's your problem. You deal with it. So if they really did care about mental health in this country, they would do something. There are plenty of things that they could be doing, but they simply are not doing any of those things. And the fact that they're bringing it up now, especially after they're cutting all kinds of medical health care from the people, it's really, really sad. Elliot, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, for one, mental unhealth does not respect borders. I think the implication that they're trying to make here is that we just have a mental health problem in this country. There are mentally unwell people all over the world. Everyone to some degree has some kind of mental unhealth. So that's a common denominator. What we have in this country is access to firearms, because if you tell people to be scared of something and that people are going to come take your guns or they're going to come after you, then they're going to go buy it and they're going to spend money on it. And that's going to be how they live their lives. And so I think thoughts, prayers, mental health, these are just rhetorical devices that they are using as a shield to keep them from actually having to do politics, and using politicize as like a slur, like, oh, we don't want to politicize. You're a politician, dude. This is your job. Like, if you are going on national television in this capacity as the Speaker of the House, then it is inherently political. So own it. Stop trying to hide it. Stop trying to be a coward, and stop trying to put it off on one group of people and doing this identity politics stuff.
Yeah, what was funny is that it was the same Mike Johnson in the same interview. He was like, I can't believe the Democrats are politicizing this. Oh, should we blame all trans people? Yeah, we should definitely do that. Okay, so look, I've been attacked by some extreme trans activists for disagreeing 5% or whatever with their ideology. Do I think they're terrorists? Are you insane? We should check the mental health of that person asking the question, Caroline Levitt, Mike Johnson, you name it, right? No, it's not. There's a form of terrorism called trans ideology. And if 2 trans shooters equals a trend enough to call them their ideology terrorism, well, how about, I said 200, but literally thousands of white males who have done mass shootings before. And if you said we should, look, the common denominator, as Mike Johnson said, first of all, it's obviously guns. But if you went past that, the most common denominator is young white males. Should we look into their ideology, classify all of them as terrorists? It's ludicrous. And they know it's ludicrous when they apply it to 98% of the shooters. But when it comes to 2% of the shooters, they're like, aha! No, not aha. Absurd, preposterous, and a cowardly way of trying to avoid the real issue and smear people that aren't like you. So, and finally, I remember when extreme right-wingers did a series of shootings. I've done a lot of those, but there was the attacks against Latinos in Texas, the shootings of Jews in temples, and of course Dylan Roof in Chicago, South Carolina, etc. I could list you a dozen, and including manifestos saying, I am a white supremacist, I am an extreme right-winger, I am doing this for my ideology, and I'd like to kill all black people in the case of Roof, or I kill Latinos, etc., right? And when you say, all right, well, I mean, that seems like an ideology, they wrote a manifesto, and look, a bunch of them match, should we be worried about terrorism coming from the right wing? They're like, how dare you? You're calling all of us terrorists, I'm gonna kill you. And now 2 trans people do it out of thousands, and they're like, that's it, call them all terrorists. It's absurd, hypocrisy is through the roof. Just wake up, man. Stop being such like outrageously biased clowns. All right, we gotta take a break, we'll be right back. right, let's go to members of TYT.com. Nerd Ferguson says some of the school shooters are transgender, some of the school shooters are white, all the school shooters use guns. I wonder what the common thread between all of them is. Exactly. As the Most Prophet says, any politician that takes money from the gun lobby should be told that they get thoughts and prayers instead of votes. Yeah, what? Are you complaining? Are you making fun of religious people? Okay, no votes for you, just thoughts and prayers. I like the idea. Nerd Ferguson says, at least those American children get thoughts and prayers from our politicians. That's a lot more than they offer those poor Palestinian children. Yeah, that's a great point, unfortunately. So, by the way, that's part of the reason why we did this shirt. Because our politicians suck, but we want the good people of Palestine to know that we care about them and that they don't represent us. Americans actually have good hearts, and you're seeing it now both on the left and the right, and we're trying to look out for those Palestinian kids. So that's the shoptyt.com, an entire free Palestine collection. You get 100% of the profits go to Palestine Children's Relief Fund. All right. Concept of a username says the kids were literally praying money grubbing monsters. Yep. Embedded Dude says Mike Johnson is Harry Potter's evil brother. And that really seems like a fair point. Nick says he agrees about the heart problem. He says Mike Johnson is a heartless monster. Sina Hugaboom agrees. Oh, Mikey, you actually have to have a heart/soul to care. You have neither. Nostra Science says guns are not the issue. It's the live ammunition traveling through them which is the issue. Okay. And Visionary says, on an earlier story, hey, RFK Jr., you know the best way to improve American health? Give all we, the taxpayers who pay for health care for you and yours, and all on the Hill and theirs, the same quality health care for us and ours. Hashtag free for all top healthcare USA. Now, of course, if we had universal health care, that'd be the best thing Health and Human Services could do, but of course, the lobbyists won't let them, and the guy who said he'd fight lobbyists hasn't done a single thing to fight lobbyists. All he's done is go to quack medicine and with no evidence and hasn't helped the American people at all. I lives in America wrote in RFK Jr.'s official cause of autism will be that not enough people ate Trump steaks. I mean, there's no end to the absurdity, so it's not impossible that they go in that direction. Mongoose Dragon says maybe all the negative attention that AIPAC has been getting since October 7th might be a springboard to getting money out of politics. I actually believe that that is possible, and I have some hope for that. And it's opening a lot of people's eyes. Oh, it's the lobbyists. I wonder if that affects other issues. Of course. All right, back on TYT, Cenk, Elliot, and Yaz with you guys. And also these wonderful people, William Bowen, Zoe Donato, and Random BPTN. Thank you all for hitting the join button below. We appreciate you guys. Can't do the show without you. You guys are our backbone. I love this community. Thank you for participating. Okay, so guys, we've got some couple of super fun stories coming up for you, and interesting stories. Donald Trump with a health scare. I mean, he's talking about it in weird ways. And then today, JD Vance talked about it in a weird way. We're gonna do that in the bonus episode for the members. So members get all that content first. You get all of our content whenever you want when you're a member. So join button below on YouTube or wherever you are, tyt.com/join, tyt.com/join. And then also some hilarious stories about Trump as well. The health scare is not the hilarious one. By the way, I wanted to tell you guys, look, we got a new sponsor. I'm really proud of them because there's a lot of scammy Medicare brokers, and they're constantly directing you based on the commission that they're getting from big insurance companies. Chapter does not do that, so that's why we picked Chapter. So if you or a loved one is going into Medicare or is already in Medicare, call 805-201-2275. On average, they save $1,100 a year for people. So 805-201-2275. You can get it done in about 20 minutes. 805-201-2275. Okay, and so the other story that we're going to cover in the bonus episode, I wanted to tell you what it was, but I forgot for a second. Oh, there's dorky Democrats. I hope we get to that. And a hilarious trademark on Gold Digger, but from who? You're gonna love it. TYT.com/join. We'll see you there.